The stars had never looked so cruel. In the small town of Eldenridge, nestled between the quiet hills and the restless sea, Lyra Whitfield stood barefoot on the damp grass, her dark hair whipping across her face. She was only 16, but tonight, the world felt impossibly vast. Above her, the sky shimmered with colors no human eye had ever named. Blues that burned, reds that whispered secrets, and silvers that seemed to hum. Her grandfather, Elias, had always said, "The universe watches those who watch it." Lyra had never believed him. But tonight, the stars were watching her. The first ship appeared silently, like a shadow sliding through the cosmos. It was sleek, impossible in design, curving in ways human engineering could never replicate. And then, as though the sky itself were bending, it landed in the clearing just beyond Eldenridge. The townsfolk would later swear the ground had trembled beneath its weight, though Lyra felt it in her bones before she saw it. A hatch opened, and figures emerged. They were tall, impossibly thin, their limbs bending in angles that made the mind ache to comprehend. Skin shimmered like molten pearl. Eyes vast and unblinking regarded her as one would a flickering candle in a dark room. Lyra's heart hammered, yet she did not run. Fear clawed at her, yes, but so did curiosity. Something in their gaze was not just alien, it was tentative, confused, human. A voice echoed inside her head, soft but impossible to ignore. Lyra froze, stunned. The voice was not spoken aloud, it resonated directly within her mind. Cold and alien, yet strangely melodic. I'm Lyra, she whispered, unsure if it mattered. The tallest figure stepped forward. You are? The subject, Lyra's brow furrowed. Subject? A pause. The air seemed to thicken. Then the figure lowered itself to its knees, an act of submission that sent a shiver down her spine. The experiment. Failed, it said. All other attempts. Destroyed. Lyra blinked. Her mind reeled. Experiments? Humans. The failures. Her heart thudded, not with fear, but with a strange rising defiance. I'm not here to fight you, she said, her voice steadier than she expected. I don't even know who you are. The being hesitated, then straightened slightly. We attempted to control your species, to bend it, to break it. Others, humans, resisted. Destroyed us, you. Its voice trembled as if struggling with an unfamiliar word. You survived. Lyra's fists clenched. Something raw and unexplainable surged inside her chest, a fierce, stubborn flame that refused to bow. She did not understand this feeling, but she had always known it. Humans endured. Humans fought. Humans survived. The alien lowered its head again. We kneel. For a moment the world went silent. Only the hum of the ships, the distant rustle of Eldenridge, and the pounding of her heart filled the void. Kneeling. The very concept seemed impossible. These creatures had traveled across galaxies, wielded technology humans could not dream of, and yet they knelt before her. Lyra did not step back. Instead, she stepped closer, curiosity now stronger than fear. Why? She asked. The alien's eyes, shimmering with something almost like shame, met hers. You carry what we cannot replicate. Will, resistance, humanity, is an anomaly. Lyra's chest swelled with a strange mixture of fear, awe, and pride. She had always known humans were fragile, limited, vulnerable. But in this moment, she felt something else. Power, potential, the spark that had allowed humans to endure plagues, wars, and starvation. The spark that now made aliens kneel before a 16-year-old girl in a quiet clearing. The night deepened. The ships hovered, their lights painting the clouds in strange alien hues. Lyra felt the weight of history pressing down on her, on all of humanity. They had come for domination. They had expected obedience. And yet here they were, humbled. And for the first time, Lyra understood a truth her grandfather had tried to teach her in all those quiet evenings under the stars. Sometimes, survival is not just about strength. It's about refusing to surrender, even when surrender seems inevitable. She looked at the kneeling figure and whispered, almost to herself, "Then we are not yours. We never will be." The alien nodded, a subtle shiver running through its slender frame. "We understand." And in that silent acknowledgement, something shifted. Not just in the clearing, not just in the alien ships, but across the vast, trembling expanse of the universe. A human girl had survived an experiment that had broken entire worlds. and for the first time the cosmos itself seemed to take notice. Lyra inhaled sharply. This was only the beginning. The first sunrise after the ships arrived was unlike any Lyra had ever seen. Light spilled across the hills of Elden Ridge, but it carried no warmth. The air smelled of ozone and something far older, far more alien. Smoke drifted from the ships, not of fire but of shimmering energy that twisted the morning mist into impossible shapes. Lyra did not sleep. She had been awake all night, standing at the edge of the clearing watching the kneeling figures. Others, less curious, less courageous, might have fled. But Lyra was not like others. She was human. She remembered the alien's words. Humanity is an anomaly. That statement had lodged itself in her mind, as if it were both a warning and a challenge. What did it mean to be anomalous? To survive when all odds were against you? To refuse to bend even when the universe itself seemed determined to break you? She would soon find out. The first of the alien commanders, a figure taller than the trees, finally stood before her. Its limbs were delicate, almost fragile-looking, yet every movement radiated authority. Lyra, it said again through her mind. You survived. Your species survived. Others tried to bend you. We failed. Lyra folded her arms. You came to conquer, to study, and you thought you could control us. What happens next? The alien's gaze was steady, unblinking. We do not know. Our empire claimed victory across the stars, yet here you stand. We are confused, unprepared for resistance of this magnitude. Lyra felt something she did not expect, pity. Not for herself, but for them. They had arrived believing power alone could crush humanity. They had not understood the strength within ordinary, fragile humans. Hearts that refused to break, minds that refused to yield. And now before her they were unsteady. You underestimated us, she said softly. Humans survive when logic fails, when machines fall silent, when empires rise and crumble. That's what makes us dangerous, the alien tilted its head, a gesture that seemed almost human. We did not anticipate such resilience. The word pulsed in Lyra's mind like a drumbeat. Humanity had endured worse than alien conquest. They had survived plagues that devoured millions. They had fought wars that burned their cities to ashes. They had climbed from caves to stars. And now, centuries later, they still stood, not merely surviving but daring to defy an empire that spanned galaxies. For the first time, the kneeling figures stirred with hesitation. Whispers of their thought language, like wind through crystal, shifted uneasily. They had expected compliance. They had expected fear. Instead, they were confronted with something unfamiliar, courage, unshakable and raw. Lyra stepped closer. If you want victory, you'll need more than weapons and machines. You'll need us to surrender. You'll need us to bow, and that will never happen. A sudden ripple of motion surged through the aliens. The largest among them, a figure whose very presence had once terrified entire planets, sank to its knees again, not in obedience, but in contemplation. You speak of fire. Lyra smiled, a small, sharp curve of defiance. Yes, fire, humanity's fire. It burns inside us. It can't be stolen. It can't be controlled. It survives everything. And when the world thinks we're finished, when the Empire claims victory, we write a new ending, in flames. For a moment, the clearing was silent. Then the wind shifted. The alien ships shimmered as if sensing her words. Energy rippled across the ground. And Lyra understood this was not a threat, not yet. This was a promise, a warning of what humanity was capable of when pushed to the edge. Some of the aliens whispered to each other, their words filled with confusion and awe. Others simply stared, unable to comprehend the force that flowed from a human girl, 16 years old, standing barefoot in a field that had never seen her kind so boldly confront the universe. And Lyra knew, deep in her bones, that the Empire's claimed victories across galaxies were nothing compared to what humanity could achieve. They had written endings before. They would write them again, and this time, the ending would not be dictated by conquerors. It would burn. She lifted her head to the sky where the ships hung like silent specters. You will remember this, she whispered. Humans are not subjects. We are not pawns, and we do not kneel. The aliens trembled, not in fear but in recognition. They had encountered resistance across planets, across stars, across centuries. But nothing had prepared them for this. A human girl, a single heartbeat in a vast universe, had reminded them that the smallest spark of defiance could ignite the greatest fire. And somewhere, beyond the stars, Lyra felt the universe itself lean in, as if eager to witness what would happen next. The experiment had failed. The Empire had claimed victory. But humanity was just beginning to write its new ending. The first command from the alien empire had been clear: contain the anomaly. They did not say it aloud, but their minds, resonating with unnatural discipline, had projected it across the clearing. Lyra understood. She was the anomaly, and the moment she realized the stakes, she smiled quietly to herself. Contain me, she whispered to the nearest alien, the same tall, shimmering figure that had first knelt before her. I don't think you understand what humans are capable of. The alien hesitated. It had weapons, machines, and technology that could reduce planets to dust in moments. Yet here it was, uncertain, trembling almost imperceptibly under the weight of her presence. Lyra knew why. They had never faced a mind like hers. A human mind, boundless in creativity, fearless in defiance, and impossibly unpredictable. The first attempt to restrain her came within hours. A shimmering cage of light descended from the alien ship, designed to suppress neural activity, lock her thoughts, and break her will. But Lyra, barefoot in the grass, moved as though she were part of the wind itself. She did not even touch the cage, yet it faltered. The technology could not comprehend her movements, her intentions, her relentless spirit. The aliens' confusion grew with each failed attempt. They had conquered worlds with brute force, subdued civilizations with terror, and reduced countless species to obedient servitude. But humanity was different. Lyra embodied that difference. She walked calmly through the clearing, letting her gaze sweep across the kneeling figures. Your empire believes in control, she said, voice steady and fearless. In order, in dominance. But we do not operate that way. You cannot predict us, you cannot contain us, and you cannot break us. The aliens whispered to each other in their strange language, their crystalline voices vibrating like the hum of unstable machinery. One of them stepped forward, trembling slightly. Your unpredictability defies logic. Your species defies reason. Why do you fight when defeat is inevitable? Lyra's eyes narrowed. Defeat isn't a word we use until the last breath leaves us. Humanity survives because we fight, even when logic tells us to surrender. We rise when others fall. We endure when hope seems gone. That is why we are impossible to control. A ripple passed through the alien ranks. The Empire's greatest minds across galaxies had studied humans, dissected their societies, measured their strengths, calculated their weaknesses. Every prediction had failed, and now in a quiet field in Eldenridge, a girl stood barefoot against their greatest designs. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her. I will show you, she said. Not with weapons, not with machines, not with your tricks. I will show you with human ingenuity. You may bend metal and energy, but you cannot bend thought. You cannot bend will, and that is the spark you underestimated. The first demonstration came unexpectedly. A small, seemingly fragile alien device meant to monitor her movements floated above the ground. Lyra reached out with a hand, brushing it lightly. Instead of resisting, it shattered like glass under heat, dispersing harmlessly. The aliens gasped in unison. Such destruction, subtle yet complete, was incomprehensible. She smiled, feeling the surge of human potential. You see? You may control technology. You may conquer planets. But a human can take your creations, study them, and turn them against you. That is what makes us alive. That is what makes us untouchable. The aliens knelt again, not out of fear, but out of awe. They had studied intelligence across light years, dissected cultures across millennia, yet none had encountered a force like this. A force of creativity, defiance, and raw human will concentrated in a single being. And Lyra knew, in that moment, that the Empire had made its first true mistake. They had treated humans like an experiment, a problem to solve, a species to bend. They had not understood what it meant to have a spark, a relentless, uncontrollable, burning spark that no machine, no rule, no empire could ever extinguish. She turned toward the alien fleet, her shadow stretching long across the ground. This is only the beginning, she said softly. You will learn that humanity is not yours to control, and when the time comes, we will show you how we fight back. For the first time, the alien commanders truly understood. A single human girl, standing firm in her resolve, could challenge the might of an empire. And in the quiet, trembling fear that followed, a terrifying truth dawned on them. Humanity was not just surviving. Humanity was beginning to strike. And when one human stood, empires, no matter how vast, trembled. The alien fleet hovered above Elden Ridge like a silver storm, their ships stretching across the sky as far as the eye could see. Yet for the first time they moved cautiously, uncertain, hesitant. All their calculations, all their predictions had failed. A single human girl had shattered their expectations, and now the Empire's might trembled under the weight of her defiance. Lyra stood in the center of the clearing, barefoot, her dark hair tangled by the wind, her eyes bright with the fire of determination. She did not see fear in the alien ranks. She saw confusion, awe, and the faintest trace of something she had never expected. Hesitation. They had expected obedience. They had expected submission, and now they had none. "You came to conquer," she said, voice ringing across the clearing. "You came to test, to bend, to dominate. But you forgot one thing: humans are never predictable. And humans? Strike back." The aliens hesitated. Their leader, the tallest figure she had seen, shimmered with tension. Its crystalline skin reflected the light in fractured patterns, its eyes narrowing. "Lyra, your species, it is unstable, dangerous." Lyra smiled, a small, confident curve of lips. "Unstable? Dangerous? Yes, that's why you can't control us. That's why your empire failed before it even began." She had spent the night studying their ships, their energy fields, their movements. The aliens had underestimated her curiosity, her mind, her ability to see patterns where they had assumed none existed, and now she would turn that understanding into action. Lyra extended her hand almost casually. A pulse of energy rippled from the ground, subtle but precise, targeting the smallest structural weaknesses in the alien fleet. Lights flickered across their ships as systems stuttered. The aliens exchanged alarmed glances. They had never felt their technology falter under the touch of a human. "Your machines obey physics," she said softly. "But your arrogance made you forget one law. Humans exploit every weakness, every crack, every chance. We are not strong because we dominate. We are strong because we endure, adapt, and strike when least expected." The first strike was subtle. Not a roar of fire, not a wave of destruction, but a precise disruption that caused minor malfunctions across their fleet. To the humans of Elden Ridge, it looked like a shimmer, a strange flicker in the sky. To the aliens, it was chaos. A single human had altered systems designed to withstand entire star systems. The kneeling figures watched, unblinking, as Lyra moved through the clearing, her presence alone commanding the battlefield. "You studied us as if we were objects," she said. "But we are not objects. We are living, thinking, unpredictable forces. You cannot calculate us. You cannot contain us, and now you will see what happens when humans fight back." The aliens faltered. Orders that should have been instantaneous were delayed. Calculations that should have been flawless were disrupted. They realized in fragments of thought that humanity's strength was not in numbers, not in technology, but in spirit, the spark that no machine, no empire, no calculation could extinguish. Lyra's pulse quickened as she observed the subtle effects of her actions. Each malfunction, each stutter of alien technology, was proof that the Empire's dominance was not absolute. Each hesitation, each flicker of fear confirmed what she had always known. Humans endure. Humans adapt. Humans strike. She raised her voice, letting it echo across the clearing. "You see us as fragile, weak, defeatable. But here now you realize the truth. Humans survive when all odds are against them. Humans rise when empires fall. And humanity never kneels." For the first time, the alien commanders truly understood the scale of what they faced. Across countless worlds, they had studied resistance, oppression, and rebellion. But never had they seen the power of a single human will, focused, determined, unyielding, and it terrified them. Lyra did not pause. She would not wait. She would not hesitate. The Empire had underestimated her species, and she would make them pay for that arrogance, not with hatred, but with the relentless, brilliant force of human ingenuity and spirit. From that moment, the battlefield changed. The aliens' fear grew, spreading like a contagion through their ranks. Their empire, vast and ancient, seemed fragile under the weight of one human girl's resolve. And in the quiet center of Elden Ridge, Lyra Whitfield smiled. knowing that humanity had begun its true fight. This was not a battle of soldiers, not of weapons, not of planets. It was a battle of spirit, a battle of will, a battle that would echo across the stars and redefine what it meant to be human. And Lyra would not just survive, she would make them kneel. The night fell over Elden Ridge like a blanket of ink, pierced only by the pale glow of alien ships above. Yet there was no fear in Lyra's heart. Instead, a quiet determination settled deep within her chest, a fire that refused to dim. She had studied, observed, and understood her opponents. She knew their technology, their strengths, and most importantly, their limitations. The Empire had claimed countless victories across the stars. Their fleets had crushed entire civilizations with precision. Their soldiers had never hesitated. But none had faced a human spirit unbound by logic, unbroken by fear, unbowed by power. And tonight that spirit would speak loudest. Lyra walked through the clearing, her bare feet brushing the dew-soaked grass, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her. Every step was deliberate, every movement calculated. She was no longer just a girl caught in an experiment. She was a force, a human force that could not be contained, measured, or controlled. The first action came unexpectedly. Lyra approached one of the smaller alien probes hovering silently above the ground. With a single precise gesture, she disrupted its energy core. It did not explode. It simply died, collapsing into harmless fragments. To the aliens, it was a shock. To her, it was the beginning. "See?" she whispered almost to herself. "The smallest spark can ignite the greatest fire." She moved quickly from probe to probe, disabling their communications, their sensors, their control mechanisms. Each success was subtle, almost invisible to an untrained eye, yet it caused cascading failures across the alien fleet. Their ships flickered, their shields wavered, their control systems stuttered. The Empire's might was crumbling, not with overwhelming force, but with ingenuity, precision, and the relentless determination of a human mind. The kneeling aliens watched in disbelief. They had expected fear, compliance, or at least hesitation. Instead, they saw brilliance. Strategy intertwined with audacity, courage entwined with understanding. Humanity, they realized, was not a species to be commanded. Humanity was a storm waiting to be unleashed. Lyra raised her voice, letting it carry across the clearing and beyond. "You believed you could break us. You believed one girl, one town, one species could be controlled. But you are wrong. Humans survive. Humans endure. Humans fight. And tonight, humans rise." And then, with a surge of motion that seemed almost choreographed, she activated the final disruption. Alien ships that had once hung imposingly in the sky now faltered, their lights dimming as energy systems overloaded. Panels shimmered, hums wavered, and then, in a synchronized moment of triumph, a cascade of sparks rained across the fleet. The aliens fell back, stunned. Their Empire's instruments had failed. Their calculations were useless, their authority shaken. And in the center of it all, Lyra stood, not as a girl, not as a human, but as a symbol of resistance, defiance, and the unquenchable fire of her species. The first victory was hers. Not complete, not final, but it was proof. Proof that humans could challenge the impossible, defy the overwhelming, and ignite hope even when surrounded by despair. The kneeling figures rose slowly, not in defiance, but in acknowledgement. They understood now that this species, so fragile in appearance, so small in scale, carried within it a force no empire could fully suppress. Humanity had written its first line of rebellion, and it burned brighter than any star. Lyra turned to the horizon, where the first hints of dawn broke through the alien haze. She knew the fight was far from over. Entire fleets remained. Civilizations across the stars would still tremble. But tonight, humanity had proven a truth that no empire could deny. Spirit, courage, and ingenuity cannot be measured, cannot be contained, cannot be conquered. She looked at the kneeling aliens, her gaze unwavering. "Tell your empire," she said softly, yet with the weight of command, "that humans are not subjects, that we do not kneel, and that we will fight again and again until the stars themselves remember who we are." The aliens did not speak, yet she felt their understanding resonate deep within her mind. They had learned, finally, the uncalculable, unpredictable power of the human spirit. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of the universe, the spark of rebellion that Lyra had lit would grow. Planets would remember. People would rise. And humanity, once underestimated, would ignite a fire that could not be extinguished. Tonight, a girl had stood alone. Tomorrow, humanity would follow. The Empire had ruled with precision for millennia, its victories stretching across star systems, its conquests measured in obedience and fear. But in Eldenridge, a quiet storm had begun. A storm no calculation could contain, no protocol could suppress. One girl, barefoot in the grass, had shifted the balance. One human spark had ignited a fire that threatened to consume centuries of dominance. Lyra stood atop a hill overlooking the remaining alien ships, their hulls flickering with intermittent failures. She felt the rhythm of their hesitation, the pulse of uncertainty spreading like a virus through their ranks. Where once there had been confidence, now there was doubt. Where once there had been certainty, now there was fear. The aliens' empire was not crumbling from destruction. It was crumbling from something far more dangerous, realization. They had misjudged humanity. They had assumed strength could be measured in technology, obedience, and control. But the human spirit, unpredictable, adaptive, relentless, was beyond calculation. Lyra's mind worked swiftly. She understood that victory would not come from brute force. It would come from strategy, unity, and inspiring humans to rise together. She sent word through the small communications devices she had recovered, simple human radios augmented with her ingenuity. The message was clear. We fight, we survive, and we endure. Together, across towns, across settlements, humans heard the call. Fear still gripped many hearts, but courage, new, fierce, and unbroken, spread faster. Humanity had tasted hope, and it was intoxicating. Farmers, engineers, teachers, and children all realized that the impossible had been proven possible. One human, standing firm, could make an empire falter. The aliens did not understand this. They studied their records, their calculations, their victories, and found only failure reflected back at them. Commands given were delayed by hesitation. Obedience faltered. Strategies crumbled. And in the center of all this uncertainty stood Lyra, unshaken, unbowed, unbroken. A lieutenant, trembling before her, asked through mental projection, "Why? Why do they resist so? Why does your species not yield?" Lyra's gaze was steady, her voice calm yet filled with fire. "Because we are humans. Because our value is not in obedience. Our strength is not in numbers or machines. Our power is in spirit, in creativity, in defiance. You can build empires, but you cannot build courage. You can crush bodies, but you cannot crush will. You can dominate worlds, but you cannot dominate hope." The alien paused, unprepared for the concept. Hope. Such a human emotion could not be computed, could not be analyzed, yet it moved through the ranks of their conquered species like a tremor. In their minds, a single word echoed: unpredictable. By nightfall, humans across the region had begun subtle acts of rebellion, sabotaging alien machinery, sending signals of defiance, resisting in ways the aliens could not anticipate. Lyra had taught them, without formal command, to use ingenuity over strength, cunning over technology, and courage over fear. Every small act of resistance amplified the chaos in the alien ranks. And in the midst of this, Lyra continued to move with the precision of a mind that understood far more than survival. She studied their patterns, disrupted their communications, and, without firing a single weapon, made the Empire's greatest minds doubt themselves. For the first time in millennia, their confidence faltered. From the shadows of their trembling fleet, the aliens whispered among themselves. "One girl, one species, defies everything we know." Lyra smiled, not out of pride but from understanding. Humanity had always faced impossible odds. Every era, every age had demanded defiance against the impossible. And now across the stars, humans were rising again. One spark had become a fire. One girl had become a symbol. And that fire could not be extinguished. As the dawn painted the sky in streaks of gold and crimson, Lyra looked toward the horizon. The Empire was not gone. Battles would come. Challenges would rise. But the balance had shifted. Humanity had written a new beginning, not with destruction, but with resilience, courage, and the unyielding truth that the human spirit could never be bent. And somewhere in the vastness of space, an empire realized that domination was no longer enough. To control humanity was to confront a force no calculation, no weapon, no machine could ever contain. Lyra turned to the kneeling aliens, now her audience, and whispered with quiet authority, "This is what you cannot take from us. The fire inside, the defiance within. Humanity survives, humanity rises, and we will never kneel. The spark had become a blaze, and the universe, vast and indifferent, had finally begun to take notice. The sky over Elden Ridge burned with the colors of alien technology and human ingenuity combined. Ships hovered, faltered, and shimmered, reflecting the brilliance of a dawn that belonged not to the conquerors, but to the conquered world rising against its oppressors. Lyra Whitfield, barefoot and unwavering, stood at the center of the chaos, her dark hair whipping in the wind, her eyes shining with a fire no galaxy could ignore. The aliens had once thought themselves invincible. Their empire spanned light years. Their armies were disciplined to perfection, and their minds were trained to calculate every possible outcome. Yet here they were, faltering, hesitating, kneeling not out of submission to fear, but out of the realization that the rules they had lived by no longer applied. Lyra stepped forward, voice steady, carrying across the battlefield like the strike of a bell. "You believed victory could be measured in fleets, in weapons, in obedience," she said. "But humans measure strength differently. Strength is endurance. Strength is defiance. Strength is spirit." Her words carried beyond the clearing, reaching every human who had dared to resist. Across towns and colonies, scattered and isolated, people rose. Each small act of defiance became a ripple, a surge of determination that the aliens could not predict, could not contain. Humanity's fire spread faster than any technology, faster than any weapon. The alien commanders whispered in panic, their thoughts colliding in confusion. Systems failed. Communications broke. The Empire's precision melted under the weight of something they had never anticipated: unpredictability. The human mind, a single spark of defiance, had ignited a blaze that could not be extinguished. Lyra's pulse was steady. She had observed every weakness, every flaw in the Empire's logic, every crack in their unwavering armor. Now she struck, not with brute force, but with precision, strategy, and courage. Alien devices failed at her touch. Fleets shimmered as energy fields collapsed. The Empire's most disciplined soldiers paused, unprepared for resistance that was both creative and relentless. "You see," she said softly, almost to herself, "humans survive when hope seems gone. Humans rise when all seems lost. Humans write their own endings." And now the Empire learned the ultimate lesson. The kneeling aliens, once proud and towering, fell fully into submission, not out of fear but in recognition. Humanity had proven something no conquest, no weapon, no calculation could deny. Spirit could never be conquered. Lyra's eyes swept across the horizon. The fleets were crippled, their ships flickering like dying stars. Yet there was no celebration in her heart. There was only understanding. This victory was not the end. It was the beginning. The beginning of a future where humanity's name would echo across galaxies, not as a conquered species, but as a force that could never bow. She stepped closer to the largest alien commander, taller and more formidable than any she had faced. The being's crystalline skin shimmered in fractured light, its eyes unblinking but filled with an understanding Lyra had earned, not demanded. "You underestimated us," she said. "You thought we were fragile. You thought we could be broken. You were wrong, always wrong." The alien lowered its head, a single deliberate act of acknowledgement. "You survive. Humanity endures. Your spirit cannot be contained." Lyra smiled faintly. "And that is why we will never kneel." Across the skies, humanity's fire burned brighter than any star. Colonies once silent rose in unison, humans everywhere realizing they were part of something greater than fear or submission. Resistance became unity. Defiance became power. And in that moment, Lyra understood what her grandfather had meant when he said, "The universe watches those who watch it." Humanity had watched, humanity had endured, and now humanity had struck. The alien empire would remember this day. Not because it had been crushed by numbers or weapons, but because a single human girl had demonstrated something eternal. That humanity's flame, once ignited, could never be extinguished, and Lyra, standing alone yet representing all of her kind, knew a truth older than stars themselves. Humanity was not just alive. Humanity was unstoppable. The stars shimmered overhead, not as silent witnesses, but as a universe taking notice. And the legacy of one girl, the girl who refused to kneel, would echo across galaxies for centuries to come. The experiment had failed. The Empire had bowed. And humanity had written a new ending, an ending forged in courage, resilience, and flames that no force could ever snuff out.